So we've all been hearing the catchphrase, "Make America Great Again 2020. Well, guess what, baby? Trump pulled that shit a year early. He just made America even greater than it's been in years. And that's on top of the fantastic economic work he's been doing to bring the country back into a place where it should have been for ages. Allow me to elaborate. So this is by Natalie Nanasi, and see if you can pick the feminist phrases from this little doozy. Without fanfare or even notice, the Department of Justice's Office on Violence Against Women made significant changes to its definition of domestic violence in April. The Obama-era definition was expansive, vetted by experts, including the National Center for Victims of Crimes and the National Domestic Violence Hotline, neither of which are run by feminists at all. Not even one feminist. The Trump administration's definition is substantially more limited and less informed, effectively denying the experiences of victims of abuse by attempting to cast domestic violence as an exclusively criminal concern. But wait, isn't domestic violence a criminal thing? Like, I know that it's not technically all criminal, but wouldn't that be the point? When people are being violent, shouldn't that be a criminal offense? Right? Now, here's the interesting thing. While we're talking about domestic violence, let's actually have a look, because we know that domestic means relating to the home. That's why we talk about domestic chores, domestic partnerships, because it's all domestic. They're domesticated, you know, they've been raised in the home. So what's the definition of violence? Let's just have a look at that for a moment. Behavior involving physical force intended to hurt, damage, or kill someone or something. So what you're saying is that domestic violence is behavior happening in the home, in the domestic setting, involving physical force, that is physical strength, restraint, physical, physically hitting people. And look, I'm sorry if this triggers anyone who's been a victim of domestic violence. It is a terrible thing for both men and women and children. But we all know which particular narrative has been getting followed for too long, and it doesn't involve men. Well, unless men are the ones being accused of doing the abuse. Here are some synonyms: brutality, brute force, roughness, ferocity, fierceness, savagery, cruelty, sadism, barbarity, brutishness, bloodthirstiness, ruthlessness, inhumanity. So tell me again how not giving money to someone can be domestic violence. Tell me again how raising your voice at someone because you're having a discussion with them that involves emotions is domestic violence. Just saying. Another thing I find very interesting, I'm almost 4 minutes into the stream and I have no people watching right now and I have no thumbs up. That tells me that there's an algorithm that's blocking people from seeing this live stream because of the words in the title. Let that sink in. Let's get back to this, shall we? The previous definition included critical components of the phenomenon that experts recognize as domestic abuse, a pattern of deliberate behavior, the dynamics of power and control. Power and control, Duluth model anyone? Duluth model, feminist theory anyone? And behaviors that encompass physical or sexual violence, as well as forms of emotional, economic, or psychological abuse. But in the Trump Justice Department, only harms that constitute a felony or misdemeanor crime may be called domestic violence. So, for example, a woman whose partner isolates her from her family and friends, monitors her every move, belittles and berates her, or denies her access to money to support herself and her children is not a victim of domestic violence in the eyes of Trump's Department of Justice. So does that mean that all this time women that have had a partner who hates them, etc., has been a victim of domestic violence? But I noticed you mentioned women, not men. Now, any man watching this right now who has been in a few relationships will know that this is exactly the kind of behavior that way too many women engage in. But yet that doesn't get mentioned because no vagina. All right. This makes no sense for an office charged with funding and implementing solutions to the problem of domestic violence rather than merely prosecuting individual abusers. So, you know, we can't actually get to the bottom of the domestic violence problem if we're getting the police to intervene in every single disagreement, right? You can't actually have a healthy discussion and engage in conflict resolution if you're just calling the police every time you have a disagreement. 6 minutes in and no people watching and no thumbs up. I see what you're doing, YouTube. Restoring non-physical violence to the definition of domestic violence is critical, as the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention reports over 1/3 of US women, that is 43.5 million of them, have experienced psychological aggression at the hands of an intimate partner. Yeah, and I bet you even more men have experienced, psychological aggression at the hands of an intimate partner? Experts have long recognized that the manipulative behaviors identified in the Obama-era definition as restricting a victim's liberty or freedom can cause greater harm and more lasting damage than physical harm. I know this from my experiences over a decade working with survivors of domestic violence. In nearly every case, the bruises and broken bones eventually heal, but the psychological scars can last a lifetime. Trump has attempted to brand his administration as one of law and order. So shoehorning domestic violence into a criminal justice framework may seem to him like a sensible way to recast the issue. But it isn't. The assumption that domestic violence must involve a criminal response demonstrates a myopic understanding of abuse. And I bet you've got such a great understanding of exactly what abuse entails just because of your gender studies degree. Many survivors, particularly those from minority or marginalized communities, are reluctant to report domestic violence to law enforcement. Minority or marginalized? Intersectional feminism, anyone? Race, class, sexual orientation. Gender studies, anyone? And immigration status can significantly affect whether a survivor decides to seek outside intervention when suffering violence in the home. A call to the police may make a survivor less safe if, for example, doing so intensifies the abuser's anger or the arrest of a primary breadwinner renders her homeless. So what you're saying is that she shouldn't be allowed to be removed from a home that she doesn't own? She shouldn't... I mean, look, I know it's a shit situation. Seriously, like, it's a seriously shit situation. But you can't just say, oh, well, the woman should stay in the home and fuck the man, he can just sort it out.